Good evening. Welcome to the Blockchain Asia show. I'm Michelle Wonderland, and here I have with me host Gustavo.
Hi. We're back to evening this
We're
time.
back to evening, yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of broadcasting completely live, we do a premiere.
Yes.
So yeah, so we're doing this, and we're talking to you from
Spain.
I was going to say the past, but and welcome. And we have our guest here, Alberto, from everywhere.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Well, everywhere, but mostly Spain lately. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Madrid, right?
Madrid, yeah.
So Alberto Fernandez was actually from he's now with Gelurida, but I saw that you are actually a serial entrepreneur. You've like started businesses in the past and you were CEO in some businesses before.
Yeah, I was. I started in Spain. I founded my own company. And then I relocated to the UK because there were many opportunities there. And then I discovered blockchain, Gelurida, and I fell in love with it, you know.
It's like one of those kind of revelations that you suddenly like, feel free all of a sudden.
It's one of those Latin passions. It's a Latin love story. Tell us about your Latin love story with blockchain.
Well, I started very, very early. I was working as a middleware engineer. And in 2013, everybody was talking about blockchain. And I started to see and to figure out use cases. And I was like, okay, but when you have to communicate between different companies, it's a lot of effort. I was in charge of an integration with very large companies, and it was such a big effort to create APIs, to expose them, and to make all the sync between all of them.
And so much red tapes. You have to get so many approvals.
Yeah, and I was thinking, what if we use an anti-pattern of integration where we share the database and we are sure that we don't have double spend. That's why I fall in love with the blockchain. Okay.
I think Spain was one of the earlier adopters of blockchain as a sort of nation where you see people actually talking about blockchain. In fact, last year we were talking about earlier. I was in California, and we were looking at the ICO for Aragon, which was snatched over within like less than 15 minutes, 25 million. They managed to raise that.
Yeah, it was crazy the amount of money that they were able to raise in a fraction of time. Yeah.
Do you think that because it's Spain, because of the economy at the time back in 2013, is that why it sort of spurred the whole sort of blockchain interest?
I think so. It could affect a lot. In Spain, there wasn't a good feeling about the economy, so I think people started to look for another ways, another transaction types outside of the fiat world, and yeah, I think it could affect. It could affect. Also, Spanish people are, I would say that quite technical. So, yeah.
How much do they actually? I mean, the early stages of like how blockchain was introduced to the Spanish, right? Because when I think about like technical, in terms of coding basis, it doesn't come to mind Spain like immediately. I think Spanish people are very technical, definitely on the engineering and putting things together. They're very good at doing that. But in terms of the coding, in terms of like if you were to compare to Russia and like parts of like India, for example, they tend to have that image of coding. How did blockchain got adopted in Spain at large?
Well, that's true. If you are very good in coding, I think you have to go to a place like the UK, where there are very good coders, Russia, or even far away. But as engineers, I think I agree with you that Spanish people is very good to put all the pieces together, to make things work. Okay, and I think it could be one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I also thought like because back then between the 2010 sort of period all the way to 2015 I was working for banks,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that we watched very closely is the Spanish economy, and it was no surprising that because of the states of the sort of the European situation during that period of time and the fall of the euro,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people with money sought for alternative sort of where they could park their money for that period of time. And I think that was when Bitcoin sort of started to. I'm not sure. I'm just looking at trends here, but I was in Spain during that period of time, so I wouldn't know. But like from your observation, was that what happened?
Yeah, from my observation, I think what happened back in 2013, Spanish people started to see Bitcoin as an alternative source. But to be fair, I have to say that the first time I saw a Bitcoin transaction, it was in 2012, and it was from a colleague. I was working in a place, and he was buying marijuana, in the Silk Road.
Oh wow! My God, this is so exciting. Like,
And that's what, yeah. So that's the virtual economy.
Yeah.
That's what
to
it's
buy
called.
marijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, this is how it started. The Bitcoin and blockchain at the early stages, it was like the cyberpunk movement.
The black market and
Yeah.
buy.
Yeah, black market. And so I'm very happy that now we have this stuff. We have this thing are back of us. So now we are more focused on the technology and the use cases and how we can benefit our companies and our society with the blockchain technology.
And I'm so excited because I mean everything that is sort of evolved from Spain and we met in Block Show, right? That was when here in Asia has actually managed to attract a lot of blockchain business that are involved in blockchain sort of businesses. And the company that you are in right now is Yelurida.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it based? Is it based in Asia or is it based in Europe?
Is it
On the
based?
distributed ledger?
Well, it is based in Switzerland, in Lugano, the south of Switzerland. But the people that we are working with them, we are a distribute layer. We have people from Israel, Bulgaria, Spain, Nigeria.
Wow.
The UK. So many people around. So we believe in blockchain. So
it has to be distributed.
Of course.
Open source and all of that, yeah?
Exactly.
And so, so what you're doing is, we're talking about this in the blockchain technology and talking about, something that has become a little more prominent, blockchain as a service.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's talk about like what you're doing with that, fill us in a little bit about your story.
Well, blockchain as a service, it's a buzzword that it was starting to sound last year. And many big companies such as IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, they were developing their own blockchain as a service. But our vision is that it's not a real blockchain as a service because what they are creating is just a private network.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very centralized.
So going back one step back, like obviously blockchain service sounds very similar to like software as a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at like some of the shorter writings of it, it's like BAS, which is SaaS, which is for the software part. And obviously, like, could you just give us our audience a little bit of background what blockchain as a service means? Because software as a service essentially means that you are sort of collecting data and you are a software business and you're providing a service out of a software digital platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like for most of the audience, like they would think that blockchain is digital. So how is that different from software as a service? And what, just because it's on the blockchain, or is there any other features that have to fulfill?
That's truly interesting because that's something that it's already defining right now. Blockchain as a service is just that you are deploying the nodes in the cloud. And that's mostly all. You don't have to deploy your own nodes in your private network, but in the cloud. That's the vision from IBM, from Microsoft, from Oracle, from all the giants that we have in this sector. But do you see a problem about it? Because we are talking about distributed technologies, the consensus. Okay, what happens with the consensus? Isn't it a little bit centralized? So our idea, it's not blockchain as a service. Our blockchain is a full blockchain as a service. It means that you can deploy the nodes, across in the cloud, even in a Raspberry Pi, whatever you want. But the consensus is a top layer, okay, that it's distributed across the world. So you can deploy your own, let's call it semi-private blockchain, okay. But the consensus and all the transactions that you will be executing will have to deal with the consensus on the parent chain, okay. That's our vision about how we can combine these two worlds: the cloud, the cloud services, software services, and also the blockchain. Okay.
Yeah. And how is that received by, say, because obviously you guys have are saying that large companies like Microsoft and all of the other large MNCs are not truly blockchain as a service. How do they view that? And would it be very difficult for them to sort of become sort of change some of the technical aspect of what they're providing right now to become more of a blockchain as a service under your definition?
Well, it would be such a big effort from them. Mainly because imagine that you want to create your own public blockchain.
Yeah.
What do you have to do? First, you have to create a community. Then the community has to run the nodes.
Yeah.
And then if we are talking about proof of stake right now, you have to distribute all the tokens equally in a very nice way. So it takes time. At the beginning, it will be a little bit centralized, but from our case, after 5 years of running a public blockchain, now we are very happy that we have a consensus, healthy, and it's quite good. So for them to create this, it would be not an effort because these big corporations, they do have a lot of money, but it's a matter of time. It's
and time is everything, right?
Of course. Maybe in 5 years, blockchain technology has been overpassed by a new technology that it's
and if you haven't moved fast enough, a lot of the systems that you sort of set in place right now will become obsolete.
Of course. I don't know if you have the same impression than me, but in blockchain, things are moving so fast. In
fact, when Bitcoin started transacting and people were looking at it, and they were looking at the white paper for what Satoshi wrote at the time, and they were saying like, maybe this could take off in like 20 years time, 30 years time, and next thing you know, everything just moves so fast. You had then the introduction of Ethereum in 2008, and subsequently like that just started taking off a speed of light. Is that how you experience as well? Like as you're looking at blockchain as a service, do you see it being adopted? Because you picked an article, and this article essentially says global blockchain as a service market is projected to be around 30 billion by 2024. That is not too far away from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. But I think in this case, it's true. It's something that it's gonna happen. Most of the blockchain are trying to move to such as a model, okay? And I think we'll get there. Okay, maybe it's a little bit too much money, you know. And I think, it depends on adoption. Okay. Now you see that we are working a lot of, we are making many efforts, but we have lack of adoption. And what are the
lack of adoption in what sense? Like from the blockchain technology aspect, or is it from the actual applications of the products that are utilizing blockchain?
From the applications, yeah, and from companies as well. I was working back in 2016 in a very large company, and we did such a very nice proof of concept based on blockchain, but it wasn't in production just because they thought that the technology wasn't mature enough to be in production. So to be fair, we have to recognize that we have lack of adoption, and that's what we are working right now. Blockchain, in some cases, it's too complicated, and it changes so much the way that companies now do the normal processes. That
so you need to change the whole IT department and hire whole new talents to be able to build that.
That's now because you're talking about adoption, and you're talking about it from your end. And how would you what would be your recommendation? Because it's difficult to scale. I mean, it happens with digital disruption in almost every factor of businesses, and especially with blockchain. People are afraid to adopt the technology because they don't understand it. So, what would be like your prediction or recommendation that would help bridge that?
Yeah, well, right now it's not a very good moment because of the bear market, and also there are several industry problems that we see that we are facing right now. First one, scalability. Okay, if you understood that you are going to have as many transactions per second as you are going to need, well, then you are not sure. You don't feel confident to design a solution with blockchain. Also, we have the energy waste. This consensus protocol, such as proof of work, they waste a lot of energy, and it's not sustainable.
For every aspect, I think there's a lot of debate about whether it's worth, right? All of that sort of implementation of blockchain. I mean, even from the mining aspect, like there's so much energy just being spent. Wasted, and then you get hackers trying to hack into other people's system, trying to get energy out of it. Like in UK, I think they hacked into the government's the sort of electrical system to get access to that electricity.
Yeah, and you can see that in countries like Venezuela, where the electricity is so cheap, they are like crazy to burning energy. But what's gonna happen with our carbon fingerprint? It's crazy. And one of the things that I didn't like about Bitcoin in 2013, it was that, that most of the consensus algorithm for proof of work, it's okay because it works, it secures the network, but mostly it is doing random calculations to get the right knowns for the block.
Yeah.
Okay. So we see that there are many movements now to try to migrate from proof of work to proof of stake, like Casper from Ethereum. They're trying to do that, and I was interested in NXT because of that. It was 100% proof of stake, so it doesn't consume energy. We have also many members of the community that they are running a node with a solar panel and a Raspberry Pi. So it's so and it's really nice, and they are collecting fees from the transactions, so much more efficient. Okay.
So you were mentioning scalability, energy, and what are the other sort of areas that?
The two ones that we have left is the bloat problem. The bloat problem is that when we have a lot of transactions, there is no snapshot. So the database from the blockchain, it increases so much and it grows so much that it's impossible to run a node. Well, it's not impossible, but have you tried to run an Ethereum node, a full Ethereum node?
Yeah, I know. It's like forever.
Yeah, it takes forever.
And a lot of people have said that it's with the current systems and all the new sort of developments in blockchain, they've made it easier, but actually in reality, when the transactions have also increased.
Yeah.
Although it has made it better, but transaction has also increased. And so you get all of that sort of in the pipeline and just delayed. Everything is just delayed.
Yeah, exactly. And also we can talk about my friend that bought marijuana in 2012, I think it was.
Tell us. We love hearing about your friend, the bought marijuana using blockchain.
So this guy now has wife, 2 kids, and a transaction that was made like 6 years ago, or no, it's still on the blockchain.
Right.
It's still
Yeah.
queuing there.
Yeah, it's still so. We thought and we have the vision that we have to implement few mechanisms in order to be able to prune the transactions while maintaining the security.
Okay.
It's like creating a new architecture based on archival and snapshot nodes, where a snapshot node, you can run a snapshot node very quickly and also without affecting the security of the network. Okay.
Yep.
That's how we think that we can solve this problem. And to end about the industry problems that we are facing, I would say that the last one is the fees. Okay, we can have a very nice front end with our blockchain solution, but we have to always to design like a gas box, you
Yeah.
know, and our clients have to deal with gas, okay, to pay the transaction fees.
Yeah.
And it is very annoying from my perspective, from the companies that they were developing these solutions, because you are forcing your clients to buy Ethereum, to buy whatever blockchain token you need in order to pay the fees.
So you use fiat to convert into crypto and then crypto back in back.
Yeah, and maybe it could be with tax implications.
Yeah.
You know, now we are not.
And then banks are also slapping on the back of like where your original source of wealth and all of that. And they, if it's coming from crypto, a lot of banks don't want to receive it, right?
Exactly. It's very, very annoying for them.
Mm.
So our vision about how to solve this problem is with a feature called zero fees transaction, where the company can sponsor the transaction from their clients in a secure way. Okay.
Okay.
And this is because an architecture and feature called bundling, where these chains
Right.
are connected to the parent chain, okay, with the bundlers. So users pay the fees into the token child chain,
Yep.
and the bundlers pay the fees to the parent chain. It sounds a little bit complicated.
I was
isn't
gonna
it?
say,
but,
so,
but
yeah.
it's not really.
How would you expect like most of the end users to be able to understand that? Right?
So
No,
that would be,
yeah.
to simplify it. Is it
Yeah.
like basically taking it that you both can buy in to prune this information? Is that
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
So
But the thing is that the users don't have to deal with this. This is for the companies.
Mhm.
So myself, as an end user, I won't even realize that I'm dealing with a blockchain.
okay.
I will have like a web page, you know, and I can make the transactions, and the transaction will be secure in the blockchain. Okay. So this is, I think, where we are heading to.
Okay.
You know, and this is how we can help this industry to have adoption, because right now it's way too complicated.
I think that UI UX definitely is the part that it's probably the most key factor here. The easiest you make it for people to be able to do a transaction in any way, in any format, whatever stage it is, it will allow adoption to be much faster and more seamless. I think what a lot of the earlier sort of developers for blockchain was that they just didn't pay too much attention on the UI UX from, and it was on this amazing technology at the back, but at the end of the day, the question was, can my grandma buy anything on the will she be able to transact? And I think that was where a lot of debate was about, you know, do we look at the digital world or do we have to set up physical brick and mortar access for people to walk in and start doing transactions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think what we need is that, and we need to simplify the applications that are using the blockchain technology. Right now, most of them are way too complicated. For developers, it's okay, but for mainstream adoption,
Mhm.
It has to be simplified. Don't you agree?
Yeah, so that your grandma could use it. Because that's what we're working toward, and that's kind of like what we have this show. Where we try to bring this these concepts that are a bit more challenging and difficult to make it user friendly,
Breaking it down, right?
Yeah.
And
The point here isn't really to sort of teach people what blockchain is about, right? It's more about like how do we sort of serve as a bridge
Yeah.
and communicate what the complicated world of this sort of technological digital blockchain that is sort of evolved. And instead of sitting here, Michelle and I taking turns reading the Satoshi white paper,
And pulling out quotes.
we bring guests that would essentially they're actually industry players.
Yeah.
And you guys have been building the technology, I mean, since 2013?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? And so like it's been like down to the core 5 years of trying to do that. And over these past 5 years, what are sort of the evolutions that you've seen occur, and how has that impacted?
Okay, the evolution that I can say it affects the most to our industry, it was in a negative way, the hype. Okay, the hype wasn't that good for us because it took the attention to not the technology, but
The returns.
the returns and speculation and so on. So I saw that right now in the blog, so I had this feeling as well that it wasn't not about the hype, it was more about the applications, about the adoption, about how we can evolve this to be more adopted from people. I can see that. Also, my opinion, what I saw it's in 2016, nice movement from normal blockchains to more powerful blockchains. I mean, Bitcoin only you can make transactions. You can.
That's like version 1 of how blockchain could be used. Like nothing can be built on top of that. And then Ethereum, like Vitalik Buterin came up and said, well, since it's the digital token, why don't we just like start coding on top of it and like use something like called smart contracts onto like these tokens, right? And essentially that was what. And now you've got several versions of like what Ethereum couldn't do, and then they came up with other different type of platforms where people were able to build stuff on it.
Yeah, and we as competitors of Ethereum.
Did you guys do an ICO and like all of that to raise the funds as well?
We did an ICO last year. We raised 15 millions.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't that much compared to Aragon and to many others, but it was enough. Even if you have more money than you needed, it could be a problem. Even it's possible. So we're happy about the money we raised, and it allowed us to make a business plan, to launch the company in Switzerland, because first it was in the Netherlands, and to keep on developing new features, to keep on developing on new advantages of the protocol that we are using.
Can you talk a little bit about that pressure of handling 15 million out of a sudden? Because if you look at a standard equity raise, which most of our listeners are probably more familiar with, is that you wouldn't go straight from like your first raise to like millions, right? And with that, with the public eye, and then with all the scrutiny happening, like what is that pressure like?
Well, I think that I have to say that I'm very happy that I don't have this pressure because I'm not one of the founders.
Okay.
So I don't have to deal with it. But what I see from the founder's perspective and from the community perspective is that there is a lot of pressure.
A lot of scrutiny as well, yeah.
For every action that we do, for everything, because you can imagine that you have put a lot of money, or the money that you can put for this investment, and you see what happened with the market. Okay, it's like the value of most of the tokens are like 90% less than they were before. So it doesn't make people happy, But long-term view, I think let's see what's happened. But I'm very optimistic about it.
Now, I want to go back and talk about, because your company set up in Switzerland. Do you have any designs on perhaps even coming to Singapore, or what was the decision behind, bringing it to Switzerland rather than you moved from Netherlands? We had talked outside about where are you from?
And it's a really good question, because a lot of people compare Singapore as the Switzerland of Asia, right? So, yeah, no, I love to see.
Yeah, well, the company was moved to Switzerland mainly because of the regulation.
Okay.
In the Netherlands, it's not that good, the regulation in terms of crypto, and in Switzerland, as they are not part of the EU regulation,
Yeah.
they have evolving very quickly, and they
Oh.
have this possibility. So it was regulated for ICOs. The law was quite a little bit adopted. A little bit developed for being crypto friendly. Okay, so that's one of the main reasons.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about that crypto friendliness? What is it? What does crypto friendly means? Because over the last 5 years or so, I think a lot of the regulations still didn't take into account some of the sort of the regulatory that we see today. It used to be a very different environment a couple of years back. So what does that mean?
I can give you an example. Okay, for instance, when I was in the UK, I tried to make investment through my company to bitcoins, and I said, well, impossible. You have to do so much paperwork to do a simple thing that it's very annoying. Okay, and you don't have like a nice field where you can set up and you can be tied to it. In the other hand, in Switzerland, everything is written, so you know what you are able to do. It doesn't matter that the money comes from ICO. It doesn't matter that you can pay with crypto. So that's one of the reasons. Okay.
Well, Switzerland is also known very much like a lot of countries like Hong Kong and Singapore as being one of the sort of more neutral tax haven countries in Europe. Like Switzerland was known for many years, even today still sort of more where a lot of wealthy people will park their money there. And so it is to their interest to draw that new found money from the digital world. And essentially, did they have any regulatory, or they just said, well, since money is money, and so we would just treat it as if it's like standard AML process?
Money is money.
Money is money. I love Switzerland.
But it depends on the canton. Switzerland is divided into several cantons. The most crypto friendly could be Zug. Have you heard about Zug? It's what it's called the Europe Crypto Valley. Okay.
Why is it viewed as Europe Crypto Valley?
Mainly because tax.
So it's not because a lot of crypto came out of there, but it's because a lot of money that was raised through crypto went there.
Yeah, and also there were many companies because there were tax benefits if you founded your company in Zug.
Yeah.
So there are many companies there in such a very cold place.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
but.
Kind of like the state of the ICO situation right now.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar.
Yeah. How has that shifted? How are people looking at Asia? I mean, we are blockchain Asia. And so we're very interested to know that, I mean, you talked about Switzerland, you talked about Zurich, you talk about how Europe has evolved into this sort of a lot of interest in blockchain. But we've seen a lot of shifts coming to Singapore. Why is that?
Singapore, we consider Singapore as a Asia hotspot and an entry to many different markets, like China, like Indonesia, like Thailand, many places around.
Is it because the language, we speak Chinese and we speak English and we speak, the languages around this area?
Yeah, and also many companies here, they deal with Chinese companies. So it's like a hub. From my perspective, it's the perfect place if you want to get into the Asian market. And that's why we are here, okay? Because in Asia, our blockchain was very popular back in 2013, but now we are lacking of adoption in China. That's why we decided that we have to do efforts here in order to promote the technology. And we visited several clients here, and I was amazed. It was very nice that companies people and businessmen here, they really know about blockchain, and they know what blockchain is for and what is not the blockchain for. So it's very easy here, I think, to get adoption in the companies because this businessman, they know exactly what is the business about blockchain and how they can leverage the blockchain technology. And this is not the
Interesting.
feeling I have in Europe. In Europe, it's
They're like, what?
Swiss chocolate, Swiss
Yeah.
cheese, watches.
in Europe, the main problem I see is that the hype and the marketing. They just want to use the blockchain technology, but just for terms of marketing because it sounds.
Where do you think things have gone wrong? Is it education? Is it because like the publicity? Was it more who is? If you were to point the finger at somebody, where would you point it? Would it be the media? Would it be the people that were raising it? Because in my view, Spain, for instance, right? I mean, is the country of some of the most well-known ICOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have assumed, and the guy that launched Aragon was like 18 or something at the point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if young people adopted so early, how did businesses there sort of are so much more laggard compared to Asia? Because in Asia, we didn't adopt sort of blockchain at large until much later.
Yeah, but why was that?
Yeah.
I see that in Asia, things are like government are like trying to forbid blockchain, then lose it a little bit up, then again try to I think that's
it's like a yo-yo game.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things that why in Asia and also China they do have a lot of problems for adoption, and in Spain, in Europe. There wasn't a very big regulatory framework, so everybody could do what they want. So it was more free, I think. Okay.
And do you think that's where the hype started to come from because it wasn't as regulated at that time?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But it's also very very easy to imagine. What happens if you put $100 US in an ICO, and then it became in 1 million. So human people used to think that it's going to happen again. So they are like crazy throwing their money to that, and it hurt a little bit the adoption of the blockchain technology.
It reminds me of the stock market back when it's like the Asia stock market, right? People were selling their houses. They were sort of pledging their houses to banks so that they would be able to take part of this amazing boom. Beautiful line chart was straight up. And then the Asia financial crisis happened in the 90s, and it was like overnight. And that was where I think government started sort of evolving and creating the bond market, establishing a different sort of diversifying market. I feel like looking at the blockchain, the crypto space is in particular, where all the hype, you started to see people in different parts of Asia sort of trying to jump on this hype.
Yeah.
In fact, we had a couple of guests here where they did take adoption very early, and they realized they were part of that entire sort of boom cycle. And then they were recommending to their friends were jumping into the cycle as well. And next thing you know, it was just like everybody was losing money and they didn't know how to face their friends. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, so something like that. Yeah. And I was wondering, have you heard that Singapore update a document for the ICOs like 5 days ago or something like that?
No, actually I didn't know Singapore updated any of the ICO documents. Did you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I didn't have the time to read everything, but I was surprised that Singaporean law is working on that. So it makes me think that this government is doing the things right. You know?
So one of our earliest recording, we did talk about how there were articles that came out and said that Singapore was going to be the hub, the blockchain hub of Asia. However, at the same time, we also heard a lot of sort of people that were trying to raise or buy and sell open wallets and all of that, were saying that banks in Singapore were not very friendly to sort of collaborating with exchanges and wallets, because there was very little sort of regulatory framework. And I think maybe that is what this is sort of trying to put in place, right? Where people are able to receive money. So I actually just, while you were saying that, I did a quick sort of search. At large, I think putting places will make banks a little bit more comforted to know that there is a regulatory framework they can follow.
Exactly.
And I think that is what
I think you are absolutely right. And also, we will see that the next year there is not going to be that much ICOs, and then going to be switched to STOs. Okay, and now people will be more confident, about investing money because they are more protected.
Can you explain what STOs are?
Yeah, it's a security token offering, while the ICO is an utility token.
So there's something pledged and it's regulated and it's all like in accordance to the Singapore MAS law and all that, right?
Yeah. It depends on the country. You have to be approved in order to launch an STO, but it makes things much more easier. So if you, for instance, I have a very nice example from one of our clients. They are blockchain, the real estate industry. So they are raising investment funds based on tokens. And these tokens, of course, if they are representing an investment fund, they are securities. So it will be very easy to distribute dividends in a legal way. And also, of course, with the blockchain, you have to pass the KYC, the AML, and so on. Okay.
How do you feel about that, though? Because I've always was tempted to ask this question to issuers of security, and we've never actually met somebody on the show, where to be on the show, somebody that was involved in issuing security tokens. So I felt like the whole reason of the existence of blockchain was that decentralized.
To go out, because then it feels more bank-ish.
Well, then you feel feel like there's no centralized this sort of control, because if history has shown, like one of the reasons why the whole financial crisis happened just back in 2008 is because of that sort of centralized decision maker, and then you've got these few players that are sort of just making regulatory decisions. And then right after that, you had the US government just said, we're going to start printing money, and they just kept adding zero to their debts, right? And then so it's all like based on a single sort of centralized unit.
Right.
But then now that was how blockchain kind of evolved into distributed ledger. You give the power back to everybody.
Right.
And now we're going back again talking about security tokens, where then, let's allow some centralized unit to make a decision whether what is going to be pledged behind these tokens, because people kind of go scared, with the standard ICO, there's nothing behind it, and then there are a lot of scams that could raise money and run away. Security tokens, people were thinking like, well, what if we pledge something behind it, and then then who's gonna regulate it and guarantee that? And then we're back to centralizing it. How do you feel about that?
How does that?
Well, it's controversial. Okay, I see your point. But I think if we want to implement blockchain technology, we have to think as blockchain technology as a virus. So we have to plant the virus into banking. They are more confident with the STO. And I think my point is that in the next few years, there are going to be new laws, okay, that we are going to be able to put everything on the blockchain. Then new regulatory will come, okay? But it's a key factor to have the governments, to have the banking industry more confident about what we are doing, okay? It's a controversial, yes, because myself, for instance, I'm not comfortable revealing my identity to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's something that we have to do because, we had so many scams. Even in our platform, back in the days when we launched something called the Asset Exchange, it was possible for everybody to create their own assets. They were like trying to scam people like crazy, and it's not very nice. With this, we sort of centralize a little bit everything, and we have to comply with the regulations, but it decreases this possibility to scam people. Okay.
Yeah, I think that added level of reassurance will bring in players that refuse and resisted to come into the ecosystem, like banks.
Right. It's kind of like that baby step. It's that because it's more familiar, and it feels a little more. I mean, even the word security is in the name. It feels a little bit more comfortable. So it helps with adoption.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the same from this real estate company. They have to also to put everything on paperwork. So they are like replicating the blockchain transactions, into the paperwork. But they are going to be prepared when a proof that a notarial proof in the blockchain is ready. They is accepted by the governments. They will be there, and they don't have to do anything. That's how I think things are going to be headed.
I'm looking forward for that because the last 2 years, literally, how many companies have I seen that, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of that, on the ICO front, there's a lot of claims that there's some form of property attached to it. But when you dig further into the, devil is always in the details, and you start realizing that actually there's nothing sort of really attached to it. And for once, I think there was a lot of talk about security tokens and how would that come into play. And I think in this year especially, we've seen with the scrutiny with ICOs and the non-backed tokens, we've seen other forms of token coming out, and we've got the fungible token and non-fungible token, and now we've got the security tokens that are sort of looking at how do you put a guaranteed behind each token that you issue.
Exactly. Did you know that only 37% of the ICO companies that they were going to develop a product, they didn't do nothing?
Yeah.
So
where did all the money go? Switzerland.
Chocolates and cheese.
Yeah.
And Alps and no.
So as an ending, sort of, I know we're running out of time, and it's been exciting having you here. I see all the way from Spain, and especially here in Singapore. What are your views going forward for Asia blockchain, especially being here in Singapore? What is your outlook?
My outlook in terms of
like as a European, looking across here, and how do you think Asia will evolve in comparison to Europe?
Well, what I think is that it's very promising. It's even more promising than Europe. I see here a lot of movement. I see here that the people is more educated about blockchain companies. That makes me happier because in Europe we have to explain the same thing, and we have to do the same proof of concepts every time. And here it seems that things are much easier. So of course, I think I will have to travel to Singapore more frequently for sure. And I'm very happy to see from my own eyes how things are evolving here so quickly, how you can get your hubs, in Singapore to connect to other parts of Asia. So from my point of view, I think in the next year are going to be great for blockchain industry in Asia, and this is a place we have to be, of course.
And it helps that we are organizing so many events and on such a more and more sort of regular frequency as compared to like a couple of years back. I don't even know if different parts of the world are organizing as often as we do here in Singapore specifically.
I see that there is even more than, for instance, United States. There are some places like California or New York that there are many movements, many meetups.
But not at a scale that we are. Like Block Show, for example, is like the fourth or fifth event that has been organized just in this last quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we're a small place, but the community is really great here. So we look forward to having you back in your frequent trips back.
Yeah, I will be very, very happy to be back here. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our Blockchain Asia show. Thank you so much, Alberto, for coming on and spending your time that you're here in Singapore to come on and chat with us. I'm Michelle, and
This is Gustavo.
So
And thank you very much once again, Alberto.
thank you very
And
much,
we'll see
Gustavo.
you next trip.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Elizabeth.
and those who are listening, like, comment, share, all that awesome stuff.
I actually want to add one thing before we end.
Ah.
We are looking for guests to
Yes.
bring onto the show. I know in the last couple of recordings we've brought quite a few international players in the blockchain space. But I would actually like to see more players here locally homegrown from Asia.
Yeah. So send us your good
Yeah.
word. We'd love to have you.